Why do audiences adore Steven Spielberg's movies? Collectively, Spielberg's films have grossed over $10 billion at the box office. That's billions with a B. Famed screenwriter and Hollywood guru William Goldman once said of filmmaking,
"Nobody knows anything."
But incidentally, we're talking about Steven Spielberg, a guy who probably knows something. Still, the question begs to be asked, what does Steven Spielberg know?
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Orphans.
Plastics.
Not plastics. Orphans. Long have writers used orphans to draw in readers and viewers. Oliver Twist, Little Orphan Annie,
Who's next?
Harry Potter, the list goes on and on. So we wanted to examine, how does Steven Spielberg use orphans to tug at our heartstrings?
Making a picture called A Boy's Life next. It all takes place in 3 rooms of a house and a schoolyard. It's all about kids, and I'm very anxious to make that one.
This is The Breakdown. Obviously, crafting orphans as protagonists is effective, because orphans can be viewed as the ultimate underdog. No family, no home, oftentimes facing abusive and impoverished conditions. In Into the Woods, John York explores some of the science behind empathy. When empathy occurs, we really do become one, physiologically, with the protagonist. As the character's heart accelerates, ours beats faster too. Watching someone being hit activates exactly the same areas of the brain as being hit. The physiological reactions, though fortunately not the pain, are identical. Stories thus literally place us all on the same wavelength.
Is that the truth? Yeah.
So let's start with the least apparent. Catch Me If You Can. The story of American forager and conman Frank Abagnale Jr. The film centers on Abagnale as he tries to find a place in the world through fake checks and elaborate lies. Carl Hanratty, an FBI agent who wants nothing more than to catch Frank, chases him. Frank lives a perfect middle-class life, complete with happy parents and a suburban home in New Rochelle. Things quickly fall apart, however, when his father is denied a business loan due to issues with the IRS. They're forced to downsize to a small apartment, and soon thereafter, his parents divorce due to his mother's affair. At the moment Frank is forced to choose between living with his mother and father, he instead chooses to run away from his broken home. Through the course of the film, Frank occasionally updates his father on his life, talking about his work and how much money he's making. Frank orphans himself, choosing instead to survive on his own.
Is this yours?
Taking cues from some tricks his father taught him, he's able to survive, developing very special skills in pursuit of a normal life, a place to belong. He becomes a master check forger and con man, convincing people at various turns that he's a Pan Am pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer. Through these various cons and fake checks, he's able to carve out an existence for himself. We marvel and cheer as Frank, a teenager through the course of the film, is able to outsmart large business institutions with wit and intelligence. Frank, in his orphan phase, uses these skills in an unrelenting search for the family structure he's been robbed of. He comes close when he meets Brenda, another person who has no family. Frank eventually finds the family he's been searching for in Hanratty, the government agent who's been chasing him for the entire movie. Hanratty, an outcast in his own right, becomes a mentoring and grounding figure in Abagnale's life, providing the center that Frank has been yearning for. Frank was a special orphan in his own right. His ultimate goal was to find a place to call home and people to call his own family. We cheer for him because the odds are impossibly stacked high against him, and he's able to use this resourcefulness, creativity, and charm to defeat these odds. One of Spielberg's most universally celebrated and beloved works, Our Orphan comes from a different planet. A film that has defined childhoods, made lasting impressions, and burned indelible images into a million minds. E.T. opens with intense and suspenseful scenes, as an alien ship lands on Earth and its inhabitants come out to explore the new world they've landed on. One of these aliens, driven by curiosity, wanders off from the group. Things quickly grow tense when trucks full of faceless men invade the forest, and the separated alien watches the ship take off without him, leaving him orphaned on planet Earth. On the other side of town, Elliot and his mother, brother, and sister are attempting to find normalcy in life after their father leaves. They argue and bicker, and Elliot's mother attempts to hide her sadness the best she can from her children.
Elliot! Sit down!
Things begin to change when Elliot discovers that he and E.T. share a symbiotic connection.
Get started with the dissection.
Like Frank in Catch Me If You Can, E.T. is an orphan whose main goal is to get back to its family, to get home. He too, like Frank, possesses special powers, which he will use in his journey. E.T.'s powers are a lot more supernatural in that he can levitate things, heal people and plants, is super good at creating devices to communicate with distant planets, and he can make bikes fly. Spielberg's able to use E.T. as an incredible underdog, a being on a strange planet with no apparent way to get home. We are drawn to and support E.T. because of his innocent, childlike nature. He's mischievous and he loves candy, and we further connect to him because he's been orphaned on the doorstep of Earth, to him a very strange planet, and to us, also a strange planet. It makes the emotional payoff of him being reunited with his family at the end all the greater. He's overcome impossible obstacles, including the US government and death, to get to that point, and it's overwhelming. Furthermore, we also get the satisfaction of this orphan uniting Elliot and his family, bringing them closer together after having suffered a family trauma. Minority Report uses the special orphan idea in a much different way than most of Spielberg's other work. The story follows Tom Cruise's John Anderton, the chief of a crime unit that deals in crimes that haven't actually been committed yet. Through the visions of 3 precogs, who are mutated humans that are able to see the future, and various pieces of advanced technology, the unit is able to put a stop to murders before they occur. Things get really complicated when the precogs predict that John himself is set to commit a murder, launching a cat-and-mouse chase between Anderton and Colin Farrell's Danny Whitwer, a government agent who is auditing the program before it goes wide. Anderton has no family unit when the film begins. His son was kidnapped and murdered, which has splintered the family. Anderton and his wife are no longer speaking, and Anderton is a drug-addicted workaholic, attempting to find penance in the work he's doing. The special orphan in this case is not Anderton, but Agatha, one of the precogs who helps to predict the pre-crimes. Because all the precogs were genetically engineered, they don't have any parents in the traditional sense. The story, and in particular the chase between Anderton and Whitwer, is set off by the predictions of Agatha and the other 2 precogs. Anderton kidnaps Agatha, and she's able to help him evade his pursuers, predicting things right before they happen. It's Agatha that guides Anderton to his endgame, to find the man he's supposed to kill and why he's killing him. Agatha also, most importantly, is able to convince Anderton to step back and reassess his potential future when he finds the man who appears to have killed his son. She convinces him now that he is aware of his future. He's able to change. Agatha, while an orphan with special powers, is also depicted as an angelic savior figure. Much like E.T., she seemingly comes from the heavens to aid in the protagonist's quest. It's her intervention in the story that sets off the events that will eventually lead Anderton to reunite with his wife and attempt to start a new life with another child. In AI, Artificial Intelligence, Spielberg unveils another dystopian look at the future. The world, having been ravaged by climate change, like that would ever happen, has limited resources for the remaining population. Because of this, having children has become a luxury due to population control. Cybertronics, an AI company, recognizes that not all people will be able to have children, and decides to fill a consumer void by creating robot children who are capable of expressing and giving emotion. That creation is David, a child mecha capable of simulating thoughts and emotions. The first family to test out David's capabilities is one of Cybertronics' own employees, Henry, and his wife Monica. Their son, Martin, has been diagnosed with an incurable disease and placed in suspended animation until a cure can be found. Initially, Monica's skeptical and creeped out by David and his behavior, but eventually warms up to him. She soon grows to love him enough that she activates his imprinting protocol, an irreversible command that will cause David to love Monica unconditionally, like any human child would. Eventually, a cure for Martin's condition is found and he's brought home. A sibling rivalry develops, and when an accident involving David and Martin makes it appear as though David tried to drown his brother, Henry feels he has no choice but to have David destroyed. Monica, unable to bear the thought, abandons David in the forest to live as an unregistered mech, with only a robotic stuffed animal, Teddy, to help him navigate the obstacles. David's powers at initial glance don't appear as obvious as someone like E.T. or even Frank Abagnale, but it's David's humanity, his ability to display emotion and thought that drives him to survive in an unforgiving world. This is most prominently on display when David's captured by the Flesh Fair, a circus where anti-robots watch as the mechas are destroyed in spectacular and violent ways. David's spared when he displays emotions so real that the bloodthirsty crowd demands he be freed. David's journey continues with Gigolo Joe as he searches for the Blue Fairy, knowing that she turned Pinocchio into a real boy in that story Monica read to him earlier in the film.
Please make me real.
Eventually, after thousands of years spent under the ocean asking a statue of the Blue Fairy to turn him into a real boy, David and Teddy are pulled from the ice by a race of super robots who give him one final day with his human mother.
I found you.
Empire of the Sun looks at the life of Jamie, a young boy living with his parents on a British settlement in Shanghai on the eve of World War II. While actually living in a foreign country, Jamie's completely insulated from the real-world chaos occurring around him in China. He's fascinated with the idea of war as a game, throwing small model planes around and sitting in the shells of Chinese fighter rigs, imagining himself taking down enemies. This tranquil existence is destroyed when the Japanese invade China, and through a series of events, Jamie finds himself separated from his parents and in a Japanese internment, along with many other people from the British and American settlements in Shanghai. Conditions are difficult, and food can oftentimes be scarce. Jamie, now known as Jim around the camp, develops his own set of special skills to survive. He crafts a successful trading network, allowing him to get whatever he needs to live while simultaneously providing things for other people around the camp. He not only trades with other prisoners, but also Sergeant Nagata, the camp's commander. One night, after a bombing strike on the Japanese by Allied forces, Nagata demands that the prisoner infirmary be burnt down in retaliation. Jim, in perfect Japanese, begs for forgiveness in front of the sergeant, saving the infirmary from destruction. It's during this time in the camp, when Jim is away from his parents and an orphan, that he develops the skills required to survive. Once a pampered, sheltered British aristocrat, he does spectacular things in the name of survival. Because of these skills, Jim is reunited with his parents at the conclusion of the war. In Ready Player One, we get Spielberg's take on the orphan as a superhero in the character of Wade Watts. Wade himself admits early on in the film that his father named him like superheroes: Bruce Banner, Peter Parker, Clark Kent, etc. Wade's parents died long ago, and he's been living in a highly concentrated area of people in Columbus, Ohio, with his Aunt Alice. His lone escape is playing in The Oasis, a virtual reality game that allows you to be and do anything you want. The stakes get raised when one of the creators of The Oasis, James Halliday, reveals that there's an Easter egg hidden in the game. And the first to find the 3 keys and then the egg itself will be granted complete ownership of The Oasis. Wade and his crew of in-game friends face off against IOI, a corporation bent on finding the Easter egg to bring the Oasis under its own corporate control. IOI uses slavery and its own employees in addition to an unlimited amount of resources in its quest to find the egg. What IOI doesn't take into account is Wade's incredible knowledge and persistence in finding the egg. He visits the archives to gather information and, as a result, has an encyclopedic knowledge of Halliday's life, which is vital. He's able to find the clues hidden in the mundane interactions, which give him the answers to the questions necessary to find the Easter egg itself. His knowledge is so vast that he knows even more than the gatekeeper at the archives.
Oh joy!
It's Wade's integrity and knowledge of not only Halliday, but also pop culture, that gets him to the final gate before IOI. His special powers are not only being great at video games, but also the knowledge and leadership skills he displays throughout.
The Shining. It's Halliday's 11th favorite horror film, and it's based on the best-selling book by Stephen King.
He's able to rally his friends and a large population of the Oasis to fight back against IOI. By the end, Wade not only has complete ownership of the Oasis, he has a real-life family and girlfriend, y'all, made up of people he met in the game. For the first time in a very long time, he isn't a loner, an outcast. He's surrounded by people who care about him.
Drink tab, play Robotron, listen to Duran Duran.
Finally, let's examine Spielberg's take on the most recognizable orphan in popular culture, Peter Pan. In Hook, we meet Peter Banning, a man consumed by the responsibilities of adulthood. He's driven by an undying need to succeed in his job as a lawyer, to the point where his relationship with his son, Jack, is suffering as a result. Things begin to change, however, when Peter travels to London and his children are kidnapped by the fearsome Captain Hook. Over the course of the film, and with great difficulty, Peter is forced to relearn all of the things that once made him the most revered name in all of Neverland. With the aid of the Lost Boys and Tinkerbell, and some very Play-Doh-looking imaginary food, he learns to fly, to fight, and to crow. It's in this film that Spielberg truly and most specifically celebrates the idea of the special orphan. Peter's arc is centered around the idea that what he has become in life, a work-consumed adult, is the greatest obstacle to uniting his family. Perhaps it's after Peter left London and was adopted by American parents and a move to the US that corrupted his mind, leaving the memories of his once great former self to be buried in the sands of time. But he sums it up perfectly himself in a speech for a ceremony for Grandma Wendy.
I guess we do have something in common. We're orphans.
That's the first step in becoming the hero he once was. Hook himself plays a pivotal role in Peter's development because he desires, above all else, a worthy opponent. Since Peter's left, Hook can't find anyone who matches Peter's skills and wit. Without Hook's brash play of kidnapping the children, Pan's journey is one that never begins. Peter, in Hook, like E.T. and Abagnale, faces impossibly high odds to achieve what he needs. His adult mind so greatly resists the idea of imagination and flying and sword fights that the movie is about the journey, with the battle between him and Hook being almost anticlimactically short. Instead, Spielberg shows us the rebirth of the greatest, most heroic orphan. He not only rescues his children from Hook, but in that process is able to fully unite his family and find the family he's been missing out on because of his work obsession. It's becoming an orphan that allows him to embrace all of the things his kids value: fun, playing games, and imagination. It most clearly defines the importance of the special orphan to Spielberg's storytelling.
Thank you for believing.
So what's the takeaway? If you're a filmmaker who wants to connect with the audience's heartstrings in a truly empathetic and deep way, follow the lead of the master storyteller, Spielberg, and make your story about a loner, an outcast, or an orphan. Maybe William Goldman was wrong. Maybe somebody does know something.
And, oh, it's lovely. Cut. Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right, y'all, don't abandon us on your doorstep. Tune in next time. Thanks for watching. This is The Breakdown.